I confess going in. I tell everybody that I'm sorry. I have a problem. I suffer from CRS.
A legend, a voice that shaped generations. And now, at 88, Morgan Freeman's story has taken a turn few ever expected. To the world, he is calm in chaos, the man whose voice could steady a storm. But behind that steady tone lies a lifetime of pain, loss, and survival that most never saw. What truly happened to Morgan Freeman as he enters his twilight years? Why do those closest to him say his calm hides a heartbreak that never healed? In this story, we uncover the pain, the reflection, and the transformation of a man nearing his final act. The boy who never felt seen. Before the world knew his name, Morgan Freeman was just a quiet boy from the South, born into a life that felt more like survival than childhood. He grew up in Mississippi, in a time and place where money was scarce, chances were few, and tomorrow was never guaranteed. His family moved again and again, chasing work, chasing stability, chasing a kind of peace that never seemed to last. Every new town meant starting over. New streets, new faces, new goodbyes. And for a young Morgan, it taught him something painful very early on. Nothing in life stays still for long. Home was not always a soft place to land. There was stress, worry, and the heavy tension of adults trying to stretch every dollar just to make it to the next week. In that kind of world, there was not much space for dreams. So Morgan created his own. He found escape in stories, old films on small screens, books with worn-out pages, characters who lived lives he could only imagine. When the world around him felt too loud, too hard, too confusing, he slipped into those stories and disappeared for a while. They did not fix his reality, but they gave him something priceless: hope. Then came the moment that would quietly change everything. A simple school play, a small stage, no fancy lights, no big cameras, just a boy who had spent most of his life feeling unseen, standing in front of people for the first time. When he spoke, when he moved, when he became someone else for a few minutes, something inside him shifted. And when the applause came, even if it was small, it felt like the world was finally saying, "We see you." He did not know it then, but that tiny spark of recognition would grow into a fire that refused to die, even when the world tried to ignore it. He didn't know it then, but that tiny applause in a dim school auditorium would one day echo across the world and become both his gift and his curse. A dream the world ignored. Morgan Freeman did not walk into Hollywood with open doors waiting for him. For years, he lived at the edges of the dream he refused to let go of. The world saw him as another struggling actor, another face in a crowded audition line, another man chasing something too big for someone from his background. He worked any job he could just to stay afloat: janitor, clerk, anything that paid enough to keep the lights on. Days were long, nights were uncertain. There were moments when he questioned everything. Was he meant for this? Was his spark just a childhood fantasy? But even in the darkest moments, he held on to the belief that something inside him mattered, even if no one else could see it yet.
I'm furious that I grew up feeling disenfranchised, that there was some reason that someone thought that I was less than they were in the human experience.
His first real break did not come with fame or celebration. It came in the form of a children's show, The Electric Company. A steady paycheck, a place to perform, and a chance to breathe. Those were his victories. It wasn't glory, but it was survival. The show kept him visible just enough to remind the industry he existed. And for a man who had spent so long feeling invisible, that meant more than anyone knew. Millions of children knew his face even if Hollywood still didn't. But behind the bright colors and simple lines, Morgan was sharpening his craft, learning how to hold a room, how to shape a moment, how to carry a character with truth. Then it happened, the role that broke the silence around him. Street Smart, a performance so raw, so unsettling, so undeniably real that critics could not look away. For the first time, people saw the depth he carried. The years of pain, the struggle, the hunger to be recognized, all of it poured into that role. And when he received his first Oscar nomination, it was more than an award. It was validation. After decades in the shadows, the world finally turned its head and said, "Where has this man been?" But fame, as he would learn, doesn't heal the scars of the climb, it only shines a light on the wounds you never showed. The crown of calm and its cost.
Didn't happen for you right away.
No, it did not.
It did not.
It took a while.
Yeah.
It didn't start until 86,
How old were you then?
50.
Success did not simply elevate Morgan Freeman. It reshaped him. Hollywood didn't just cast him in roles, it cast him into an image. Suddenly, he wasn't just an actor. He was the wise man, the mentor, the voice that carried truth. Directors saw him as the calm center of every storm. Audiences believed he was unshakable, the steady presence who always knew the right thing to say. That image followed him everywhere. It clung to him like a second skin, and though it brought him respect, awards, and opportunities, it also locked him into a role he never asked to play in real life, the man who never breaks. But the world didn't see the cost of that crown. They didn't see the pressure he felt to maintain that calm, even when his own life was anything but peaceful. Fame built a pedestal beneath him, and people expected him to stay there. He was not allowed anger or fear or weakness. The silence he had learned to survive with as a child now became his armor. And yet, that same silence slowly turned into a prison. Every time he wanted to show vulnerability, he remembered the image the world needed him to uphold. Every time he wanted to say, "I'm struggling," he swallowed the words instead. When you are the calm for everyone else, there is rarely anyone to be the calm for you.
The award-winning actor Morgan Freeman will undergo surgery to treat injuries received in a car accident last night near his home in Charleston, Mississippi. He was airlifted to Memphis.
The crown of greatness looked golden from afar, but up close it pressed down quietly, until the day it nearly broke him. The fall that no one saw. The world looked at Morgan Freeman and saw stability, wisdom, permanence. But privately, his life was shifting in ways no one could have imagined. It began with the accident, a quiet drive that turned into a moment that nearly changed everything. The crash left his hands severely injured, his mobility limited, and his body in constant pain. Tasks he once performed with ease now required effort. Movements he had mastered on screen had to be relearned. Even holding a script became a struggle on some days. The public saw a man who recovered quickly. But behind the scenes, he carried the pain like a shadow, adapting, adjusting, pushing through with quiet endurance because he refused to be pitied. As the years passed, another challenge slowly emerged, subtle but relentless: age. Hollywood is a world that worships youth, speed, and flawless energy. And Morgan felt each shift with startling clarity. Lines that once flowed effortlessly now took more time. Scenes that once required intensity now demanded careful pacing. His memory, once sharp and commanding, sometimes faltered. His body tired more easily. For a man who had spent his entire life mastering control of his voice, his presence, his craft, these changes were deeply unsettling. They forced him to confront something he had avoided admitting for years. Even legends are not immune to time. And in the stillness that followed the fall, Morgan faced the hardest truth of all: that even legends must learn how to be human again. The return of the man, not the myth. When the noise of fame finally faded, and the weight of expectation loosened its grip, Morgan Freeman entered a period of silence the world barely noticed. It wasn't a retreat, it wasn't a defeat, it was necessary. For the first time in decades, he allowed himself to step back from the constant pull of cameras, scripts, and public demands. In that stillness, he confronted the parts of himself he had ignored for years, the grief he carried, the pain he pushed through, the doubts he never dared to voice. And in the quiet, something unexpected happened. Healing. Solitude became a place where he could breathe, reflect, and rediscover who he was beyond the applause. He learned to value mornings with no schedules, conversations with no pretense, and the simple peace of existing without performance. At 88, Morgan Freeman's story is no longer about fame. It's about peace. He has shown that success doesn't erase pain, that strength isn't silence, and that even the calmest voice can hide 1,000 storms. His journey reminds us that every legend carries a human heart, one that breaks, heals, and keeps beating with purpose. If his story moved you, comment, and subscribe for more untold truths and the real stories behind Hollywood's most powerful lives.